microphones, and this is Robert Sumwalt with the NTSB. Let's listen.
Well, good evening. My name is Robert Sumwalt, and I'm a board member with the National Transportation Safety Board. The NTSB, as many of you know, is an independent federal agency. We're charged by Congress to investigate transportation accidents, to determine the probable cause, and then issue safety recommendations to try and keep these accidents from happening again. Before I go any further, I would like to offer our sincere condolences for the loss of lives and the injuries that people have sustained, and our thoughts and prayers are truly with them. NTSB investigators began arriving in Philadelphia between 4 and 5 this morning, and the majority of the GO team was in place here in Philadelphia by about 9:30 this morning. Upon arrival here on the scene, we coordinated with the local officials, the first responders, and then we conducted a pretty thorough walkthrough of the accident site to be able to get an idea of what we're dealing with, sort of the lay of the land. At noon, we held an organizational meeting where we established our investigative protocols and parties to the investigation. The investigator in charge is Mike Flanagan. Mike has over 40 years of railroad experience, and he has more than 15 years of accident investigation experience with the NTSB. He is leading a multidisciplinary team of accident investigators that will be looking into the track, the signals, and I'm talking about the train control signal system, the operations of the train, the mechanical condition of the train, to include the brake system, the recorders, survival factors, and emergency response. In addition to our investigative team, we have experts from the NTSB's Office of Transportation Disaster Assistance. They are here to help facilitate the needs of the victims and their families. Here's the factual information that we presently have. Last evening, Amtrak 188, an Amtrak Northeast regional train, departed Philadelphia's 30th Street station at 9:10 p.m., bound for New York City's Penn Station. The train consisted of 1 locomotive and 7 passenger cars, and according to Amtrak, there were 238 passengers and a crew of 5, for a total of 243 occupants of the train. At approximately 9:21 p.m., while traveling through a left-hand turn, the entire train derailed. Just moments before the derailment, the train was placed into engineer-induced braking, and this means that the engineer applied full emergency brake application. Maximum authorized speed through this curve was 50 miles per hour. When the engineer-induced brake application was applied, the train was traveling at approximately 106 miles per hour. 3 seconds later, when the data to the recorders terminated, the train speed was 102 miles per hour. I will indicate that these are preliminary figures of speed, subject to further validation, but we're pretty close on that. That's our first look at it. It's a pretty complex thing. You don't just press a button and press it and spits out a speed. We have to measure the wheel speed and then put that into a formula, but we're pretty confident that the train was traveling pretty close to those speeds, within 1 or 2 miles per hour. The train had recorders, it had forward-facing video cameras, and it had an event data recorder. Both of these recorders are being sent to our laboratory for analysis in Washington, D.C. We did get these initial speeds that we just provided you with from an initial download of the event recorder. We've released the track back to Amtrak, and they will begin rebuilding it very soon. The locomotive and all but two of the train passenger cars are currently being moved to a secure location where a detailed examination and documentation can occur. Throughout the next few days, the investigators will work on scene to thoroughly document the accident site and gather factual information. We will be doing a more detailed documentation of the rail cars and the scene. We plan to interview the train crew and other personnel. We would like to interview passengers of the train. We will be conducting a site distance test. We'll be testing the signal system, the train control signals. We'll be testing the braking system, and a detailed analysis instead of the cursory analysis that I mentioned earlier of the recorders. We'll be doing a very detailed download and analysis of those recorders. Our mission is to find out not only what happened, but why it happened, so that we can prevent it from happening again. That's really what we're here for, is learn from these things so that we can keep them from happening again. I suspect that our investigators will be here in Philadelphia on scene for about a week. I want to emphasize that we're not here on scene to determine the cause of the accident while we're on scene. We're not going to speculate. Our purpose for being here, I like to describe it as that we are here to collect perishable evidence, which is that information that will go away with the passage of time. That's really what we're here to do, is collect that information that will go away with the passage of time. We can go back and do the analysis later, but we have to capture those data very carefully now. I feel like for just arriving on scene this morning, I feel like the preliminary information that we have is robust, but we still have a lot to get. I know that you have a lot of questions. We have a lot of questions, and our commitment to you is that as we are discovering factual information, we will be releasing it. I would be looking for a press conference about this time tomorrow to tell you what we've learned tomorrow. And that's the way it works. Our investigators are out in the field doing their jobs during the day, and they report back to me so I can report to you. I would encourage you to follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @NTSB. As I wrap it up, I'd like to thank the first responders for all of their efforts. They've been out here through the night, through the early morning, all day, trying to secure this area. We want to thank them for their hard efforts. Now, I will call for questions. I'm going to call for questions. What I'd like for you to do is raise your hand. I will call on you, and once I call on you, please state your name and your outlet. Let's go.
I'm Pixel 11 in New York. I've had a chance yet to talk to the engineer. The report now that he did not comment on what happened before the curve and the application of brakes to the police.
Have we talked to the engineer? The answer to that is no, but we plan to. This person has gone through a very traumatic event, and we want to give him an opportunity to convalesce for a day or so before we interview him. But that is certainly a high priority for us, is to interview the train crew. Right here.
Mr. Sumwalt, Tony Costello with NBC News. You talked about 106 miles per hour on the speed. How long did it take him to get up to 106? In other words, had he been progressively getting faster and faster? Do you have a timeline for that? And also, were there any whistles or bells going off warning him in the cab that he was speeding?
So the question is, at what point did the train reach 106 miles per hour? Our initial examination of the data We have not gone back that far because it is a very detailed analysis of reading those data. We wanted to find out the speed so we could report those to you. We will be coming up with the timeline. That's one of the things we will do, but we don't have those exact figures at this point. Any alarms in the cab of the locomotive, and we will discover that information. We should through the cockpit data from the cab, from the event recorders. Yes, sir, right here.
Are you confident, Chris O'Connell from Fox 29, are you confident that all the fatalities have been accounted for? You said most of the rail cars have been removed. There are, you say, one or two left. Do you know if there are any more fatalities?
The question is, do I know if there's any more fatalities? And the information concerning the fatalities, I don't want to sound bureaucratic. We are here to investigate the accident, and that's our lane. The release of the information on the injuries and fatalities, that is the domain of the Philadelphia Office of Emergency Management. So they would have that information, and so that's the answer to that. We'll come here. The question is, the engineer applied put the train into emergency braking a few seconds before, moments before the derailment, and in the next 3 or 4 seconds, the speed of the train had only decreased to 102. As we know, it takes a long time and distance to decelerate a train. How long would it take to get the speed down below 100, below the track speed of 50 miles an hour? Well, he was already in the curve at that point. You're supposed to enter the curve at 50 miles an hour. We'll take a question right here. The question is the black box, is the event data recorder, is that at Amtrak? Is that what your question is? Yeah. We took it to that's the question. We took the event recorder to Amtrak's facilities because they have the equipment locally to download it. So we took it there for the preliminary look, but now we're taking it to our own labs in Washington, D.C. This question right here.
How many event recorders are there?
How many event recorders are there? There's one event recorder, and that's in the locomotive. In addition to the event recorder, there is a forward-facing camera.
WCBS Radio, was the train equipped with any sort of system that could have or should have slowed a train that was going too fast prior to the curve?
Was the train equipped with any type of device that could have or should have slowed it down to keep it within its limits? And Amtrak, throughout a good bit of the northeastern corridor, has a system called Advanced Civil Speed Enforcement. That's called ACES. ACES is installed throughout most of the northeast corridor for Amtrak. However, it is not installed for this area where the accident occurred, where the derailment occurred. That type of a system, we call it a positive train control system. That type of system is designed to enforce the civil speed to keep the train below its maximum speed. And so we have called for positive train control for many, many years. It's on our most wanted list. Congress has mandated that it be installed by the end of this year. We are very keen on positive train control. Based on what we know right now, we feel that had such a system been installed in this section of track, this accident would not have occurred. Right here.
Is there a dead man switch in the train or any emergency alerts set up?
Is this train equipped with a dead man switch? Some trains have it and some don't. Oftentimes, in place of the dead man switch, they have an alerter. So if there's no activity from the engineer within a certain period of time, an oral and visual alerter will will activate in the cab of the locomotive, and then if an engineer then makes a throttle movement or something, that will deactivate. We want to know exactly what was in that car.
No, you don't know. No,
Fine.
something set by the engineer.
Let me call on you. I'm going to take a question right here. Well, when was the last time the rail was inspected? Post-accident, before accident and post-accident. The rail geometry car ran over.